Look at it. Look what I own, everybody. Are you jealous? You're jealous, aren't you? Whoa. The Wishbone Ash Argus box set. Look how thick it is. Whoa, look at it. Full of goodies. Right, it's no longer enough to just own the album like we did in the 1970s. No longer enough. No. You got to fork out hundreds of pounds now to own this beautiful thing. And it is a thing of beauty. It's got books in there, DVDs, CDs, all sorts of things. Right? Now, on this video, I'm going to be questioning whether these are really what they're cracked up to be. Really. You know. Or is this money for old rope? Now, this is no criticism of this specific box set. It's a beautiful box set. It's no criticism against Wishbone Ash, right? It's not about that. There's two things that start to niggle me a little bit. It's these box sets coming out and these remasters coming out. Now, let us take the latest one that's just come out. And I've ordered it. I have ordered it. It's In a Glass House by Gentle Giant. And that's a bit of a funny album in Gentle Giant's catalogue, because Gentle Giant, they come out in 1970 with their debut album, Gentle Giant, and then they follow it up with Acquiring the Taste, and then they do Three Friends, and then their lineup changes, and they get John Weathers on drums. That becomes the classic lineup, and then they do Octopus, Power and the Glory, In a Glass House, Freehand. I hope I'm not forgetting any. And these albums really started with Three Friends all the way up to probably Interview, masterpieces. If you were to internally measure Gentle Giant and what they're doing, I think they reach a peak around about In a Glass House. That for me is peak Gentle Giant. But it never got a proper release, did it, in America? And it was never mixed that well. And the band have always regretted this. And because they didn't own the masters, they didn't own the original separate tracks to actually do a mix from, they could remaster it, but they couldn't mix it again properly. But now we have AI. AI can do everything. Now, AI could just give you another Gentle Giant album if you wanted to, but that don't count, isn't it? We don't want them to do that. But what we do want them to do is use their AI skills to pull apart, listen to the tracks, and then pull apart what it thinks the bass line is. Don't think it's separated the bass line. This is AI reconstructing the bass line for you, right? What AI comes up with is not the bass line. Now, we can get into some deep philosophy as whether the bass line on a recording is the bass line, or originally was it just patterns on magnetic tape. You know, we can get into all that if you want to, but I'm not going to. The point is, AI pulled it all apart, and then they were able to mix it properly. Okay? And they have done a brilliant job at this. So suddenly, you get this album, and it's like a veil of dirt on a masterpiece is taken away, and suddenly, for the first time, we hear it as it was intended to be. And I will add into the narrative around this album that this is possibly their greatest album. And the reason why it hasn't gone down, and the reason why we scratch our chin and think, is it Octopus? Is it Three Friends? Is it Bangla? You know, is it Freehand? But I think, objectively, this is the most consistent album. It's got a lovely structure of two short tracks and a long track, two short tracks and a long track. It's one of the few albums that has got a longer tracks in. And so it's the closest to have that sort of topographic oceans, thick as a brick, close to the edge structure to it. Whereas I think some of the other Gentle Giant albums are more standard albums. I don't think saying they sprawl, but this one has a gestalt aspect to it, which I don't think the other albums have. But also, they're at their peak, and they haven't decided to then try and make their sound more commercial, which we see here on Freehand. Not much, it's still out and out, but Freehand, Interview, and then we get Missing Piece, and then, you know, The Crime, which is Giant for a Day. The slow slide to not terrible, but not not vintage Gentle Giant. I think this is their greatest album. I really do. And I think I've said that on the channel before. When I really had got my head around the catalogue, which took me a while to do, I thought this was their greatest album. So it's I got to buy it. So I go on to the various websites. And of course, it's there, double disc, whole ton of money. I just bought the CD. I bought the basic one so I can own it and have it. Right? Now, I put this forth because I don't have a problem with this, because for me, right, there is and always has been an aesthetic problem that the band have acknowledged already that now can be solved by technology. But for the other albums, right, what is the point in repackaging them? Say a record goes out of print, major label hasn't got it anymore, and a label buys it up and they meticulously go back to the original copies and get the artwork exactly the same. They get the label looking the same, everything looks the same, but they just present the album with the mix. Now, if they want to just tidy that mix up a little bit, now this is called remastering. Now, remastering, I don't have so much of a problem with, right? Except when we just get into continual remastering, okay? And the point is, as soon as you do remaster it and you stick it on CD and it's remastered, you do lose the sound of the original vinyl record. This is why there is a market for people putting their vinyl records on and they film the record going around and then, you know, run that sound to the recording so you can hear what the vinyl originally sounded like. If you're really interested in this, if you go to my Patreon, and you don't have to be a member to do this, but you can buy my radio show, and it's hours and hours and hours. You can buy it as a package. I think it's each one's a 2-hour show, an hour and a half show. Everything that is on my radio show is me playing the vinyl and recording the vinyl. So you hear my vinyl, you hear the cracks of my vinyl, and you hear the sound and the warmth of the vinyl. Right? So for me, what I want is to be able to buy that. I want to be able to buy the initial experience. Now, I'm a little perturbed by the whole box set thing. So we've got a classic album like Wishbone Ash Argus. So the obligatory box set comes out. So they'll do a remaster. Fair enough, you've got a remaster of it. Okay? That's not altering the mix as such, it's just like cleaning the mix up, or it should be. Then you will get a whole bunch of live material, some film, video, you'll get a book, lots of writing, pictures from the time, right? So it's wrapping a historical context around it. What's the problem I have with the box set? Well, it's because I feel it's being sold to us as being the platonic version of this album. This album is so great that it has to exist in this form now. It can't just be a record on the side, you know, which is what it is. You've got to add all these things to it, you know. So it's like, I think that all that they add to it diminishes the original. Any tracks that didn't make it diminishes it, right? And I wonder how much we really get from this as punters. I have some of the Led Zeppelin box sets, and they're very exciting because they have more stuff like by Led Zeppelin. There's only 10 albums by Led Zeppelin, that's it. And then, since Led Zeppelin's demise, we've had a slow release of these things. Now, the Zeppelin documentary was called Remembering Led Zeppelin, or whatever it was. Or In the Beginning, I can't remember what it was called. The only reason that came out, I believe, is because they found a new recording of an interview with John Bonham. Oh my God, we found an interview with John Bonham. Well, let's put out a multi-million-dollar like bloody documentary and stick out there and make a ton of money. It's motivated by the fact that they've suddenly found something. But all the stuff they're finding originally was cast aside. artists choose to present to you what they think is the art. And I wonder that if you then present alongside it the original mixes or something without the vocals or a different version on it or a track that didn't quite make it, all you actually do is diminish the original. Now, what really made me start to think it was probably the 500 or 600 quid I spent on Miles Davis box sets. They did a release and it went through that classic thing from In a Silent Way, Bitches Brew, Jack Johnson, On the Corner, all the Live Evil sessions, and these huge 6 CD box sets are coming out. Hundreds of pounds they were. And I felt that Miles was utilising a creative process where he was jamming and directing, and he was waiting for something to happen. When it happened, that was it. And then Tio Macero, or Macero, whatever you pronounce his name, he was then editing these, and the editing is part of the art. Now, I know you're saying, yeah, but you still get that when you buy the album, right? But for me, I now own those Miles Davis albums as the box sets. And so I've got to open it up and search through, and sometimes they're split across discs as well, to find the actual album. All right? Listening to all the other stuff, you know exactly why it didn't make it. And in trawling through all these recordings, for me, I hate to say this, it actually affected how I heard the actual album. I wonder whether there's a very subtle point that, yes, it makes money. Yes, for fans, they can feel like they own something. But the actual listening experience of listening to all this extra stuff diminishes the power of the album. You will never get from that extra stuff what the album does, but you'll go searching for it. Okay? Now, there must be the odd case where there's a live version that's even more incredible. I know there's all this here, and that's very important. And sometimes you wonder, you know, why wasn't this put out at the time and why is it being put out now? I think if these things exist, they should be put out separately and presented as great art. I believe the album, if we value it, is of value because it allows the artist to cull and present in a certain way. It allows them to show you what they wanted to do, all right? Because what we're getting at the moment is a Leonardo da Vinci, but they've stuck around it all his sketches, and you don't need it. Right? This is money making, right? And maybe it's keeping these bands going, you know. This Wishbone Ash box set has got 5,000 copies. Now, I don't know how much it is. I think it's around about 150 quid. So if there's 5,000, all right, and it costs 100 quid gross, the amount of money when they sold all of these is 5,000 times 100. It's 50, which is 500,000 quid, is it? Is that right, 500,000 quid? That sounds too much. To produce it, we could probably take a 20% off that. So there's 300,000 quid's worth of profit here in this box set, perhaps. Have I got that right? Sounds too much. So 5,000 times 10 would be 50,000. Yeah, so when you're doing sums on YouTube live, you do doubt yourself, because you know if you do get it wrong and the whole thing is based upon the sum that you just did, that everybody's going to explode in the comments, you know. I mean, it's going to do the algorithm good, so maybe I should have just got that sum wrong. You know, believe me, I've done that because we do. Anyone who's got a business will be doing things to maximise profit. So in this Wishbone Ash, there's about 300,000 copies. Now, you know, they're going to be giving copies out for free. Now, this copy is not one that I bought, obviously. So, you know, we could take a little bit of that, but this could be £250,000 worth of profit there. And that enables the band to go. And if the fans want to have it, then what's the problem with that? What's the problem? It's art versus commerce, isn't it? Now let's park the box set thing, and now let's move on to the remix. I started with that because I started to try and steelman the opposite argument against me and say, look at the Gentle Giant album, that's essential that we have that. But what we've seen is, in recent times, the album being passed on to somebody to mix it again. And certain bands have done this for every single album. Now, the main guy for doing this has been Steven Wilson. So Steven Wilson, the visionary of modern prog, the man behind Porcupine Tree and now his solo stuff and all the things he does, he's like a prog visionary, isn't he? Prog visionary. So he'll take a Jethro Tull album, he'll have it all separated, right? And then he will mix it to his taste. So this is not about trying to polish it up, present what the art was. This is Steven Wilson's version of the art. Right? Now, he'll do some of them, some of the big ones, but then I notice when he can't do it, he'll pass it on to someone else. They're not quite in the same league as him. You know. Won't say any names, but they get passed on. Theirs not quite as good. No one's done it to me. Andy, do you want to remix one? Do you want to remix one? Yeah, I'll have a go. Okay, then. What do you want to do? Van de Graaff Generator? Nah, I don't like them. Well, what do you want to do then? I want to do something good like Yes. Steve Wilson's done all those. Oh, well, what have you got then? Dunno. Maybe an album by Egg? Okay, then send it over. I'll do a mix of it. To me, I think this is absolutely wrong. I think this is wrong. I don't think it should be happening. I don't know why it's going on. All right? I don't think anybody should. I don't know the justification for doing it. Right? But if they do offer me Egg and they're going to pay me, I probably would do it. So again, this is all money. Now, it was all money in the old days, but in the old days, it was set up weird that great art could come out of this. But these things I'm describing, no great art is going to come out of this. This is flogging a dead horse, and this is money for old rope. Those two metaphors combined together. And the idea that someone's going to come in, and because they are who they are, they're going to remix something. Now you might say, oh, but he does it really well. What does he do, punters out there? What does Steven Wilson actually do? Because now we come to the bloody crux, don't we? Let me get positioned a bit closer so I'm more intimidating. Now we get to the crux, don't we, viewers? Okay? Are we really just putting a modern aesthetic on these albums? Tighten them up, making them sound more perfect. Right? Is this just not the anal retentiveness that's in prog abounding forth? Let's get rid of the hiss. Let's make the bass drum more punchier. Make it sound more like a modern bass drum. Make the snare drum sound more like a modern snare drum. Is it all about that? Is it just cleaning it up? And Steven Wilson happens to just have that right level of anal retentiveness that he can clean it up well. Or is he adding something to it? Now, the next thing we can bring in is the old 5.1. Right? 5.1. That's an interesting thing, isn't it? It's never really taken off, has it? But I assume there's people out there and they've got their 5.1 set up at home and they can go and put their tubular bells on and close their eyes and now it surrounds them all. Right? But the way you mix in 5.1 now, this is a completely different person putting their artistic spin on it, and it's a very big artistic spin. So for example, say you're mixing a band. Do you want to seat them in the middle of the room and make them sound like a live band that's sat in your living room with you? Or do you want to push them over into the corner of the room and have them in front of you like you're watching it as a concert and you can hear, you know, the sort of ambience behind you? Or do you want them spread out all around you, so you're in this place, and once they're spread out all around you, do you want them to circle around you and go through you and over you and all this type of stuff? Right? How sacred is the thing in itself? I don't think it's sacred. Okay? I think it's interesting to have it there, and if people want to buy it, they want to buy it. I'll never stop them from doing that. But I think it needs to be said that what we're getting is artistically questionable. I think that's perfectly fair. I'm not going to stop you liking them and listening to them. But for me, I think that those recordings are those recordings and they should be left alone. All right? In the future, when we have 3D modeling and AI combined, and we can take a Leonardo da Vinci painting and put it in, right, and we can clean it all up and take every ounce of grime off, and then we can suddenly see what it looks like. Now, I don't mind that. I've said that level is okay. But what if you start to go, well, let's make the blues even more bluer. Let's make the reds even more. I know the Mona Lisa, she's pretty, but she's not pretty like modern standards. We have a different idea of pretty. Put a little bit more sexier makeup in, a little more, and all that. Suddenly, you think visually what that looks like. That's what's happening to these albums, right? And it doesn't matter how much you say, yeah, but I'm doing it tastefully. Okay? You have to understand what taste is. Because I don't think they're buffing stuff up and making them sexier in that way. But what I think is we're getting a late stage postmodern idea of perfection. Okay? This is something I think that has come along and ruined the music industry completely. When I hear most produced albums, they lack something that these albums originally had. And when I hear these buffed up remixes, when they work, I wonder whether we needed them at all. Yeah, maybe there's a little bit more clarity here, maybe that treble's more, you know, and all this blah, 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 you know. I was on holiday last week and found this shop, huge shop selling film memorabilia albums and CDs, but a lot of CDs. So this guy had so many CDs, hundreds of thousands, but they were just 50p each. Well, I'm as much of a CD collector as I am an album collector, so I bought a whole ton of these 50p CDs, and I decided to fill up my blues collection because I love the blues, but it's not something that I really listen to. But I would say deep down, I'm a blues player. That's where I come from to start off with, blues rock player. So I started buying all these albums up. Leadbelly, Robert Johnson, Charlie Patton. I get in the car, I put the Leadbelly albums on, I put the Robert Johnsons. Those specifically are mind-blowing. They're mind-blowing. Right, and they're mind-blowing because it is such a different, it's like getting a telescope and peering into space and being able to see not just distance but back in time. And suddenly these things start to emerge. And when you listen to Leadbelly, you hear the end of actually an echo of what music was like before recording, what was actually going on. You hear the X factor that exists in popular music that makes it great. With Robert Johnson, it's different. What we hear with Robert Johnson is you hear all those ideas that went before have coalesced into genius on every single level. On a lyrical level, songwriting level, on a singing level, on a guitar level, performance level. And within all the static and dimness, you have an awareness. This guy has walked in to a hotel somewhere. He's sat facing the corner of the room and he's sung into a microphone. And then he's buggered off, unknowing that these recordings would be like the Helen of Troy, to get a bit of an Odyssey reference in. This would launch 1,000 everything in the 20th century. Right? Now, I don't think anybody wants to drop Robert Johnson into AI and have AI tell us what it sounded like. Because it can't know. The only way AI can know is through the lens of today. I don't want then it separated, and I don't want Stephen Wilson or anybody, even bloody John Mayer, you know, remixing Robert Johnson to show me how they can better it. Don't want it. Now, what that suggests to me is, as we go forward into time, all these box sets, all these Stephen Wilson remasters, all of this will just become part of the junk and detritus of contemporary culture, to be lost and forgotten forever. And what will shine out in the end will be those original recordings. And the more we go forward, the more people will be going, can we get past this remaster that was done, or this AI mix that was done? Can we get past that and down to what actually people were hearing at the time? And what will be the experience will be to have a turntable in working order and to have a vinyl album and sit down and put it on. And when there's a few scratches and pops on it, you might say, well, you know, it's like the postmark on a penny black, right? That is what people heard. On the very first day when they brought it home and they put it on, perhaps there was just surface noise and no scratches. But all of our records had scratches on. It explains to people what was going on, what was important. If we want these recordings to be valued, we have to value these recordings. I think that what's more interesting for me, going to so many record fairs now, is that I never buy new albums. I never buy new vinyl. When I buy new vinyl and I take it home and I open it up, even though the quality is often better and all this stuff is going on, I do not get the feeling that I get when I have the historic vinyl. And I find this fascinating, that if I want to listen to a record, so I have this Argus box set. Now, Argus by Wishbone Ash, I don't know it that well. And I thought maybe I should go and have a listen to it, and I can maybe utilise that in a video at some point. I'm doing this all the time. I'm listening to new music, but far more often I'm going and listening to albums that I haven't heard and really checking them out, spending a week with them. If I'm going to do that with Wishbone Ash, I'm going to do it with the CD. Why? Well, because I could carry the CD around easily. I can stick it in my bag. I've got a CD player at home and I've got a CD player in the car. I've got quite a few CD players at home. So I could listen to it. Now, I could go and listen to it on YouTube Music or Spotify, but I can't do that. I can't do it. That is not the experience. And I've realised in doing that, I can't judge anything. I used to do it. I used to put an album on, got the headphones on, go on Spotify, listen to it with the headphones on, and I'm like, that's all right. Not because everyone says. And then a year later, I get a CD or vinyl copy, stick it on my house, turn the speakers up, I'm in the room, right, it's blasting out, and it blows me away. And I think, why didn't I feel like this before? There's a whole bunch of things that we could get into, but you have to understand that our appreciation of music is completely aesthetic. There's no truths. You see, if Steven Wilson was true to art, he would just go, right, I'm mixing it like this. And we would get a new creation that is Steven Wilson creating a piece of art out of these stems. I don't have a problem with that, but it's a separate thing. The idea that we fold it in with the original art, I don't think that's right. The idea that these remixes and masters mean anything, that they're the final word, they're not. The final word is the album as it was when it came out in 1973. That's it. That is it. And all this stuff is just detritus and junk. Culture produces a vast amount of detritus and junk. When you rock up to your refuse tip, what you're pouring in to that tip is stuff that you bought, that you spent money on, and now is worthless to you. Whether it's old carpets or chairs or pictures that you don't like anymore. I've gone to the tip many a time, and as I've pulled up, someone next to me has got something out, and I've gone, you know, what's wrong with that rug, mate? That rug, this happened about 2 months ago. What's wrong with that rug? Nothing. I only just bought it. So why are you chucking it for? Wife doesn't like it, we've got another one. I'll have it then. He don't want it, but I want it. And yesterday I was up the tip, and I walked down and I threw something into where you get all the metal bits and all the electronic stuff. And then I was looking at it all, and this guy opposite who works there, he goes, Andy, do you remember me? And I said, no. He says, I used to be on the music tech course, and you taught Benji. Oh, yeah. Didn't really remember him. He was a nice lad. We started chatting about it. And I said, will you turn a blind eye if I grab anything out of this tip? And he went, yeah, maybe not. He didn't say anything really. Don't want to drop him in it. But what he did say was it was full of these incredible things. But I think there was worth, someone else doesn't think there was of worth. Things that last, things that penetrate out of the epoch in which we live and manage to survive in the future. If any of this does, it won't be any of this. My basic point here is these box sets artistically are worth nothing. You may like them. You may want them. You may be arguing, saying, no, I want to get that box set and I'd rather listen to the Steven Wilson mix. That is so much better. Yeah, that I accept all that. Right? I've tried to put something across here that is actually quite counterintuitive. And what I'm saying is I think as time goes on, because the value that permeates beyond our epoch is so rare, most things don't have it. Right? When you pick up a Fender Strat from 1958, right, and you hold it in your hands, right, there was 1 million guitars made back then that the designs did not last. And because they did not last, those guitars usually have been destroyed. And then some of the Strats that were handmade won't be that good, and people will have fiddled around with them and they won't be there. So evolution brings it all down, and then suddenly you've got this guitar that's worth £500,000 because it's gone through this process and it's popped out. It's survived. A little bit like a soldier running across a field in a battle, and his friends are falling by the wayside, and he knows he's going to fall by the wayside. But when he gets to the end and the battle's over, he looks around and there's only him left. Right? That is what happens with culture, and everything else is washed away. I think if we were to have that sort of virtue attached to music, nobody would buy these box sets. Nobody would buy these remixes. Nobody would want it. Right? It would create a more rarefied and tasteful approach to music listening, rather than this sort of magpie collection thing, which usually goes beyond music and into some sort of less healthier way of seeing the world. The idea that, in grabbing the butterfly and then sticking the pin through the butterfly and sticking it on your wall, that you capture the butterfly. But that's the last thing you captured. So I wonder whether the next time the next box set comes out, or the next Stephen Wilson remix comes out, and you feel in your heart that, oh, I've got to buy this, because I think that's what I'm appealing to. If you want to buy it, fair enough. But if in your heart of heart it goes, I got that album, I love it, but have I got to buy that now? I think if you can remember this, no, this is just fluff. This is just flim-flam that people are attaching onto it. And it means nothing. You do not gain anything, and it does not add anything to your experience of that album. Okay? It being mixed better, it sounded better, the packaging being better, a live version of it, a 3-dimensional 5.1, 7.1, Stephen Wilson remix, Paul McCartney remix, whatever it is, right? Anything else that they've added to it is ultimately worthless. It is just shadowy reflections of the glory of the original thing. And I promise you, if Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon is really worth anything, you may find yourself driving home late at night and you tuned into the radio and you haven't got a great signal. And it sounds, it's mono, it's, like a bad radio signal. But you're in a certain place psychologically, you're in a certain place physically. You're driving along, and suddenly that moment you're in is presented to you through art. In other words, it's like God's visited you at that point. And God's trying to tell you, this is when art works. It's like a message from God. And Great Gig of the Sky turns up. And suddenly you are carried away. Now you're carried away by the tune and the moment and who you are in that moment in time. All right? That is what art is. When art works, it's a profound experience, because it's the coming together of subject us and object us. Us being at once a speck in the universe and at the same time the centre of the universe. And art, when it works, when it's profound, it brings all these things together. And great art is almost like the answer to your prayers. I was on holiday a couple of weeks ago, and I have anxiety when I drive. I've managed to virtually get rid of it completely now. So I'm back out driving. I had a number of years where I couldn't drive any distances myself, and I could definitely not drive on my own for too long. And I was suffering with anxiety. I don't know if anyone else here suffers with that, but it's gone now. But I was having to regularly do this journey on my own to see my daughter and her baby, to pick them up. And it was going over this hill. And these hills were playing with my vertigo, right? And I was finding this especially the case when the sun was coming down. To be weaving over these hills in the Peak District with the sun coming down and the clouds and these incredible vistas and then drops and then ups and all this type of stuff. And I was dreading it. And I became aware that it's quite a psychedelic experience to be in that. It's an incredible experience. So I'm driving along and I'm thinking that you're alive at the moment now. Your life is coming together. It's not dreary. Right, I know you only driving across a hill, but experientially, this is a moment where you become conscious, properly, fully conscious, in a Gurdjieffian sense. Suddenly you open your eyes, you go, oh my God, I'm alive right now. And when that happens, Gurdjieff called it self-remembering, when that happens, you create a memory. Now, I thought I could either drive across this full of anxiety and go, oh God, and I'm slowing down and I got vertigo, I hope I don't break down here, and all this type of stuff, and worry not about it. Or I confront it for the psychedelic experience that it is. So I look through my CDs to see if there's anything that I could use. Could I use art in this moment? And I saw, believe it or not, the Chemical Brothers, Dig Your Own Hole. And there's a track on there by Noel Gallagher. Now, is Noel Gallagher my favourite artist? Is the Chemical Brothers? No, but this is an incredibly psychedelic track. So as the sun was going down in the Peak District, as I was going all these windy hills around these bends, I stuck on Setting Sun with Noel Gallagher and the Chemical Brothers. And then suddenly, my whole experience inverted around like this. And suddenly, I was alive and I was drinking life in. And while the music was on, I was in this place. Until the day I die, I will now remember this. That record, that moment in time, me, my past, my future, and now you, through the telling of the story, all came together at that moment in time. And it was like hearing the answer to your prayers. It was like being shown, this is how you live. This is how you do this. This is what your life's about. This is the meaning. You want meaning. Here it is right now. And for Steve Wilson to remix that, for there to be liner notes on it or photographs of it or anything, even my description of it here is not it. Right? And that moment, art often provides the key to that. It can happen without art. But when it happens through art, it is someone else's mind. It's the mind of the artist who is trying to reach out to you. And I can't speak of it any more than that. I can't speak of it. I can't explain how that mind of that individual is not just, they're not communicating to me. They are creating a moment that they have their human hands on. It's not just a random association of images. Their intention is involved in it. So surely we do not belittle Stephen Wilson's intention when he remixes it, but it's him. And then I question what he's doing, because it is not Bill Laswell remixing Miles Davis for the Panther Lasso album, which I think is incredible. No, this is him bringing late postmodernist, anal retentive, perfectionist aspect to this. In other words, using today's limited aesthetics to strangle the message that was there in the past. And that is why these are worthless.